when we started years ago, after What the Bleep, and people started waking up to the idea that subjective changes or subjective mind produces objective results in the external world, the most common question we got was, how do you do this? How do you make those changes? If something's going on inside of us and it's producing some result outside of us, what is that process that's going inside of us that we could begin to measure? And, if it happens once, it's an incident. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. But if you start seeing it happen 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 times, now you're looking at a trend, you're looking at a pattern. And anything that's repeatable is science.
Chloe, where's your ear? Yeah, where's your head? Yeah, where's your mouth? Where's your nose? That's your eye!
Our daughter is about to turn 1, and she was exclusively breastfed until she was about 6 or 7 months old, so we didn't know that she had any sort of allergies or anything like that, but she had eczema for all this time, and we didn't really know why.
Are you hungry? Come on, let's go.
And about 7 months old, we decided to start introducing some formula. And the first night that we tried to give it to her, she kept batting it away and batting it away. And just shortly thereafter, she vomited, and then her face began to swell and her ears began to swell, and she was covered in a rash from head to toe. And we went to the emergency room and found out that she had a really severe dairy allergy. The eczema that she was presenting was actually from foods that she was getting passed through my milk all along the way before she ever even had the dairy.
In 2007, my husband, he committed suicide in jumping off a building in Amsterdam. And after that, I was actually a whole year stressed out, in pain, emotionally upset. I was angry. I didn't know how to continue my life without him and the kids not having a father. For 3 or 4 months I couldn't sleep, and then I started using alcohol. I started drinking 2 glasses of wine so I could get into sleep. But in the morning when I would wake up, the whole emotional state in which I was in at that time was there, immediately popped up again. I couldn't relax, but I kept on going. And then 1 year later, at a Friday, I was at my work, I was tired, I was stressed out, and then from one moment at the other I was talking to 2 colleagues, and then I couldn't stand up anymore, I couldn't walk. And they called immediately emergency number, and then I was taken to the hospital. And I was in the hospital for a few weeks. They didn't know what was really going on. They called it an autoimmune reaction. And I was released after 6 weeks out of the hospital without knowing the cause of why I couldn't walk, without any really good treatment, because they couldn't find the cause.
I was in 2 wars, Persian Gulf War and the Iraq War. I found out I had PTSD, and the VA's response to that was to use all these different medications. And having a doctor of pharmacy degree, I knew that that would just more or less put a Band-Aid on what I was going through, that I really needed to get to the core trauma to deal with those experiences that I did experience. And so I wanted to find a non-pharmacological way of dealing with the emotions I was feeling.
So we took her off all of the solids that she was eating and slowly started to introduce foods one by one to figure out what she was allergic to, and it was pretty much everything. We felt really responsible and felt really bad. I did, because it's, I'm shoving these things into her body not knowing that she's sensitive to them. So just a lot of conflicting emotions, a lot of guilt, a lot of worry as a mom. You know, it was a constant process of saying like, okay, well, I'm just going to try like a little bite of strawberry or, you know, and so there was all that hope that would build up and then she would have a reaction again. And so then there was the guilt afterwards, like what was I thinking trying it again? You know, when we went to the doctor, they talked so much about her limitations, you know, and that's just not a word that you want to hear when it comes to your kiddo.
I lost everything in that year. I was disabled, I couldn't walk, I lost my husband, I went really down. I got ulcers in my mouth, I got ulcers in the certain epithelium of the mucous membranes in the mouth, in the esophagus. I was in constant pain, and that was actually the reflection of how I felt inside. I was in pain. In January 2011, I got a diagnosis of esophagus cancer. I had two options, chemo or operation. And the operation, I said, okay, I'm not going to take. I just try first the chemo, maybe that will help. From the moment they gave me the first chemo, my heart rate went up to 200 and something. I felt nauseous, I felt so awful. Then I actually at that moment already wanted to pull it out, but they told me to keep it going in because that would be the best thing to do. But 2 hours later, I said, I want this out. I want this out of my body. So then they pulled the infusion out and I walked out of the hospital and I said, I'm not going to go back there anymore.
If you keep the brain sustained in the high level of emergency mode and the adrenal chemicals are running in the body, the brainwave patterns that are created are no longer in rhythm. They're no longer synchronized. They're dissynchronized or disintegrated or disorderly. And that type of disorderly pattern in the brain sends a disorderly signal down the central nervous system and causes disorderly messages to the rest of the body.
I had one huge thought since 2007. I was carrying around my husband should not have committed suicide and he should not have left his children alone. So that thought, these thoughts actually created the stress in my body, the anger, the sadness, like, my God, how could he have done this?
If you look at the depression that we're seeing as a society, as you're seeing pharmaceutical companies and all the antidepressant medication, there's a crying out there in the world right now that people are in pain.
I think that transformation is teachable, and I think that a new model has to be developed. My intention in this work is really to make it so simple and provided in a language that isn't based on tradition, that isn't based on culture, that isn't based on religion, because I feel like those things tend to divide people.
What I'd like to invite us to consider is to consider well-being as a skill. One of the important components of well-being is resilience, the capacity to effectively cope with adversity. Adversity happens, and we are all subject to adversity at some point or other in our lives, and how we respond to that adversity is a key attribute of well-being.
So if I'm looking at resilience as being the aspect of what we'll call my ebb and flow, that I have the ability just naturally to flow in the river. You naturally go around the rock. You naturally flow into this tributary.
And it turns out that we can actually learn to become more resilient. We can learn to recover more quickly from a stressful event. The evidence that we have before us today really leads us inevitably to this conclusion, and if we all actually took this conclusion seriously, I think it would propel a national and global movement for us all to take more responsibility for our own well-being.
We are going to start at 6 o'clock in the morning. You could sleep in at home. Bring your body here. You'll be so happy that you did. And always remember, when you wake up in the morning at 5 or 5:15 or 5:30, everything that your mind is telling you is a lie. Just remember that. It's all a lie.
Everything we do will affect our brains. The environments that we're exposed to, the way we behave, the way we comport ourselves, all affects our brains all the time. Our brains are constantly being shaped. And if we take more responsibility for the shaping of our brains, if we instill qualities of equanimity and of generosity and of kindness, our brains will change because we adopt these mental habits. And through that change, we can produce enduring changes, enduring transformations in our experience and behavior. And the best ways that we're learning that we can change these habits is through meditation practices.
You don't have to be a Buddhist monk. You don't have to have 40,000 hours of meditation. All you have to do is understand how to hit the tennis ball. That there's certain steps you have to go through to hit the golf ball. There's certain steps you have to go through to learn how to knit. Now, there's 4 kinds of meditations. There's a standing meditation, a walking meditation, a sitting down meditation, and a lying down meditation. We're going to begin to practice the same process that you're doing sitting, but you're going to stand up and you're going to raise your energy in your body.
When I first heard about meditation, I didn't believe that that would work for me because I had these ADD, hypervigilant tendencies. My alma mater, the University of Wisconsin, showed brain scans from the Buddhist monks and how they actually had a control study where they brought individuals off the street and showed them that they could de-stress and calm.
When I first met His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1992, he challenged me and he said, look, we being scientists have been using the tools of modern neuroscience to study qualities like fear and anxiety and depression. Why can't we use those same tools to study kindness and compassion?
He looked at all of us, young scientists, and he looked at us and he pointed his finger. And when he points his finger at you, it's hard to just dismiss it as, nothing, no big deal. He said, I'll be watching all of you. You are responsible for reducing suffering in this world. This is where this mindful revolution or inner revolution is happening. It's happening now, and we need scientists to continue to investigate, to show the evidence for how these practices can be transformative, to be the best human you can be, not only for yourself, but for all the people around you. So one of the most amazing things about this mindfulness revolution has been how it's actually pushed the field of neuroscience forward. People in the neuroscientific discipline weren't thinking about what a resting mind was and what it does. The resting mind was used as a baseline for everything else that was of interest. But now what we're realizing is that the resting mind is actually quite busy mind.
People are hovering at a level like this, I think, just from all this environmental input and stressors and things you're trying to modulate. It's so important to just take it down a notch. You're already here. You're like a pressure cooker, right? There's not much room. So if your baseline is down here, you can handle the stressors up and down, and you go back down there and you're cool, right? But if it just adds up and adds up and adds up, you can't tolerate very much.
I'm very, very pleased to be here and be able to share some of this research with you.
So we call it mindfulness-based cancer recovery, and essentially we train them in principles of mindfulness as well as we do moving mindfulness or gentle yoga. It's a clinical service. It's open to all cancer patients and family members that come through our program. When people have a traumatic or difficult experience like cancer, sometimes it's a catalyst for growth and transformation and finding more sense of meaning and purpose in life. And the programs seem to have that effect as well. People reported being more spiritual, meaning they have a sense of connection with something larger than themselves. We've been very successful with this particular program over the last 15 years of amassing enough evidence that now cancer centers all around the world are offering this program based on that evidence.
So that's one thing that's really great about the field, is that it's opening new doors of methodology and insight into how the mind works.
Bonk. So we had learned these meditations. We went home and Chloe fell asleep on me for one of her naps, and I just eat that time up of getting to hold her and be close to her. And so instead of putting her in her crib, I just let her stay there on me, and while she was on me, I meditated. And I really just got into this overwhelming state of love. I didn't even start with the intention of thinking, oh, I'm going to heal my daughter. It was much purer than that. There wasn't a lot of intention besides just this overwhelming love I was feeling, connecting skin to skin with her. Next thing you know, through the meditation, I was just in tears and thinking about the abundance of hairs on her head and the abundance of blades of grass that we've sat upon and played together, and the abundance of times that I've gotten to rock her to sleep and to utter her name, and I just was awash with emotion.
When you're truly present, you forget about time and space. When you're truly present, the hindbrain, which is the factory for all those stress hormones, settles down and the forebrain begins to silence the rest of the brain so that you're not distracted by anyone or anything or any extraneous stimulation. It's a volume control. So getting people beyond their identity as a body, beyond their identity as the people they know and the things they own, the places they live, getting them beyond their association and their identification with their external world, their present reality, and getting beyond time is a skill.
You're journeying back to source, and if you can't get excited about that, I'm going to ask you what you do get excited about.
The same level of mind that you've been living from every single day in your conscious and unconscious reactions to your external world is not the mind that's going to produce transformation in this room. And you have to get greater than the habituations neurologically and biologically in your brain and body. You have to transcend your identity that's connected to your external world, and you have to literally lose track of time. And I call it digging deep because you reach a point where you hit a wall. You reach a point where you're caught in a neural circuit that's going around, and you can't address it from the circuit. You can't change a computer program by being the computer program, can you? You have to get into the operating system, and you need an operator to change the program. And that operator is not your body. The operator is not the program. The operator is not the ego.
So when we drop into meditation, we drop the body, we drop the physical. We go into that deep subconscious mind, the operating system. And what happens is the divine is waiting for us, saying, come this way. It wants us to interact. Mystics, shamans, healers, sages, they step into that altered state of consciousness. It's our divine right as human beings.
We will be randomly selecting people in real time for meditations where we'll pull you out and we'll say, it's time for you to get your brain mapped. And we're going to measure your brain in real time during a meditation. We're going to see what's taking place. And when a person's struggling, when a person has transformation, we want to see it in real time. How different parts of the brain are talking well with one another. How the front is talking to the back, how the left is talking to the right, how different compartments are all of a sudden synchronizing and holding hands, and what syncs together links together. And that level of orderliness that's created causes the brain to function in an integrated and holistic fashion. And you start to feel more like yourself than you felt in a long time. And that level of coherence sends a very organized signal down your central nervous system, and all of a sudden, all other systems begin to organize themselves as well. So then, as you start opening your focus and sensing space and nothing, as you begin to unfold into that infinite vast void, the longer you can linger there as an awareness, and you're touching and tuning into a frequency called the unified field, which his signature is order and rhythm, which is wholeness, sooner or later, coherence is going to begin to consume incoherence, and all of a sudden the brain will begin to become more integrated. The brain waves begin to change from beta brain waves, high beta aroused state, into alpha. And in alpha, all of a sudden, the inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world. And as your brain waves slow down, all of a sudden, you're connecting to that autonomic nervous system that wants to just do one thing, create order and balance in your body.
He didn't know anything about me. And he knew that I had PTSD, that I had ADD, I had the hypervigilance, everything. You could tell that by my brain map. And like I said, it was kind of shocking, but it also gave me a lot of hope, because I knew that through this brain mapping, I could measure my progress. And I actually had the objective measurements. The brain maps showed me I could actually go into my meditations and use that information in my meditations to help starting to heal myself.
And all of a sudden you see the front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. We've seen this so many times. You see the right side of the brain talking to the left side of the brain. And all of a sudden you see the brain starting to move into a more holistic state. And those brain waves become highly coherent. When that happens, that energy moves right into the heart. And all of a sudden, the person starts to feel connected to something greater.
I made a decision to start meditating daily, and I started the work first on my own, and then I started talking with people about it, and they were supporting me. I would start meditating in the evening around 9:30, and then I would sit with it till I really felt I'm whole, I'm having more energy, I'm joyful, I'm a happy person, I can do this, it will work. All these changes that I had to tell myself. If not the chemo, then why not try to heal myself?
So we're stepping into the practicum, right? And the skill. And it's one thing to study, rodents in a changing environment. It's another thing studying people changing their internal states and being able to sustain those internal states. So that's the practicum that leaves the philosophical behind. So if you have philosophy or theory and you initiate it, that initiation then should lead to some type of mastery or skill.
So what happens internally when the energy hits the head? There's light. There's a very bright light. You no longer need your vision, but because you're human, you're still trying to see. It's really hard to describe what happens. There's a lot of light. You can feel the currents. You can feel the blast. You can feel the movement, but you can't really put a name to it.
They are having an inward experience that's greater than their trauma, their diagnosis, their fear. Whatever's happening between their ears is more real than anything that's happened in their external environment. Their sympathetic nervous system has switched on, and instead of switching on like being chased by a predator, it's taking all that energy stored in the body and it's driving it up to the brain. And when it goes on, all of a sudden the brain goes into gamma and she's aroused from the inner experience. But it's not from a predator or from a danger, it's from the divine.
On one hand, you feel uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, but on another hand, it was such joy. You know that everything around you and inside you is alive and it's full of love. You know, just unconditional, beautiful love.
Imagine 750 people in the room. They're overcoming themselves. And they start activating this center, their center of oneness, their center of wholeness. And as the heart starts getting coherent and it starts creating elevated emotions like gratitude, people are feeling the emotions of their future that begin to create holism and oneness. If the environment signals the gene, and the end product of an experience in the environment is called an emotion, when you embrace these elevated emotions, you are literally selecting and instructing new genes ahead of the environment. And we are going to turn on new lights and turn off old lights, signaling new genes in new ways.
During meditation, my heart just opened up. I was sobbing with joy, and I was having these waves and waves and waves of love and gratitude.
I can only describe it as like a bolt, like a lightning bolt of energy arrived in my heart. Didn't come sort of up through the center or down. It just came out through my heart and up through my head.
I was very conscious of the fact that I expect to see anything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started feeling this weird, strange shaking all over my body, but it was getting stronger and getting stronger.
And there are tears of joy rolling down their face. They are being baptized by the divine. And when that occurs, they feel so whole and so in love with life and so in love with themselves, it's impossible to want. How can you want when you feel whole? You feel like you have everything. And that's the moment the magic happens over and over again. And there is a biological, neurological, genetic upgrade in that person. And when that occurs, you will feel so connected and so whole, you no longer experience separation. Imagine the heart is in super coherence. And when that heart starts to beat in rhythm and they're sustaining it, all of a sudden that field starts to expand. That energy starts to become very coherent, like dropping a pebble in water after pebble, and it's creating this wave.
I don't know how to describe it, but it was this amazing energy just went right through me. It was this crystal blue white light that I saw. Like within seconds, my ear clears and I can hear for the first time clearly out of my ear like in 3 years.
I went back to the neurologist and he said, Sue, out of the 8 lesions that you had, most of them have completely disappeared and the rest have significantly diminished. And that was in 9 months with no medical intervention. That was the first time he'd ever seen it with somebody who hadn't taken any drugs.
We saw people with Parkinson's disease that had tremors, intention tremors, pill rolling, shuffling gait.
Parkinson's disease is deficiency in dopamine in the brain. When there's not enough dopamine in the brain, the upper motor neurons can't communicate well with each other, and it causes involuntary tremors in the body. Try as you may to control it with your conscious mind, you can't. So then what do you see in the brain? You see all this red, which means the brain is overactivated, it's overstimulated. So then that overactivated energy in the brain is sending an overactive signal in the body, and the body is experiencing tremors or spastic paralysis. So take a look at this person 3 days later. You see much red in that brain at all? There's no drugs, there's no surgery, there's no electrodes placed in the brain. They basically change their state of being. Now, in order for that person to do that, they can't do it with their conscious mind, right? They got to get beyond their conscious mind and get into the operating system where true transformation can take place.
I got a gastroscopy and it was gone. The cancer was gone. I don't know what did it, just meditated. I just was there every day with it and seeing myself like I'm a healthy person, I'm fit, I'm happy, I have a good life, I earn money again, and I'm healthy. That was my main thing, but I knew that I had to be healthy up here, and especially the emotions, because they are sometimes so strong, and the environment is also like, oh, you know, if you have cancer, the environment reacts like you have cancer, you know, and wow, and they treat you differently, and you even go and react like that. Oh, I have cancer, you know. And at one point I stopped, I told nobody anymore anything about the condition I was in. I stopped also talking about my husband's suicide because I decided to not go there anymore emotionally. And that helped me to heal myself.
But yeah, so we did these, this series of meditations over a couple days, and one day I just turned to Brian and I said, I just feel like Chloe is healed. Like I just had this mother's intuition. Like 99% of me believed it, but there was still this 1% of me that was really tentative. And so we just started with some of the ones that she had the lesser sensitivities to. And then just kind of day by day, we did it really naturally. We didn't force it. It was with each meal. We just lived our lives.
Choo, choo, choo.
And so I tried it. I was making some like eggplant lasagna and gave her a little bit of cream sauce on my finger. And of course she loved it because it's delicious. And she kept eating more and more and more. And, I was watching, not really watching, waiting for a reaction, but just more watching, just ready to wipe away that 1% of doubt. And nothing happened. She just enjoyed the food. And there we were in the kitchen, a family making a meal together and eating a meal together. And it was a miracle.
Drink? Wash it down?
My old thinking was that all the things that happened to me, I was a victim of circumstance or of other people. We as a society as a whole, we're always stuck in the victimhood of what happened to it, and not to say that those traumas weren't bad and that they weren't hurtful, but to be able to come out to the other side and see from myself, wow, that has made me who I am today. Those traumatic experiences made me the man that I am today.
I was a victimized person. And I decided to not be victimized anymore. I decided at that point I can go on living, I can heal my life, and I finally will enjoy my life again.
Leo, come here. Come on, good boy. In my meditations, I thank my fear, my anxiety, and I thank it for keeping me alive, but telling it today, it doesn't serve me. So that's huge in meditation, to be able to get out of myself, get out of my body, and use my brain to not give me the adrenaline rushes that I'm so used to. And of course, my body rebels. It wants those fixes. It wants that adrenaline. It wants the fear. It wants that because that's what it's used to. So using the meditation, actually visualizing what it would feel like not to have that. And so it's rewiring my brain to get into that mode instead of the mode that I've been raised in.
The research in mindfulness in the brain is teaching us that through our own intentional efforts, we can actually change our brain through purely mental activity. And this is kind of amazing because it suggests that we all have the capacity to shape our own brains in ways that may be beneficial.
And the research shows that the more focused a person is, in other words, they can keep their mind on a single task, guess what it's directly related to? Happiness, joy. And the more fractured a person focuses, the more they're living by those stress hormones and the more fractured and confused they are in their life.
Everything that I was suffering of, which was a physical condition and emotional condition and mental condition, because it's a three-dimensional thing that's going on, is changed. Like I walk again, I have enough muscle power to walk without crutches. I bike again. I do all the things I love. I work again. I look after my kids, and I'm a happy person.
Okay, let's do it. You ready? The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout to ask the universe, what's it all about? The stars in the sky said, life is great. So the itsy bitsy spider went home to meditate.
Yay! We sang the spider song! I think the coolest thing has just been the joy quotient in our lives. It's not about, you think about this process of manifestation and law of attraction, all this kind of thing, and you think about things and stuff, and I want more wealth, and I want this, and we're like normal people, we want that stuff too, but it's beyond that. We have just been more joyful as a family and just more present with each other and more connected. I mean, every day we are living our best lives. I mean, that's invaluable. And I wholly attribute it to this time that we're spending. We get up every morning at 5 a.m. together, and we sit side by side, and we spend that time in meditation before Chloe gets up. And we've gotten ourselves into this state of mind that's blissful and joyful. And we go into her room, and we sing, and we dance, and we have this whole fun wake-up routine.
Good morning, morning, morning. Good morning, good morning. It's time to start your day.
And you see it in her face, just to start the day like that. Imagine starting your life, right? Every day, starting your day with that much joy, with singing and dancing and hugging and connecting and smiling and just pouring your love all over one another. And to me, that's the miracle.
We owe it to ourselves, to go out and try it and experience it. And once you've experienced it and feel the, like Kelly was saying, the joy and the love that you can't help but have and experience, that you won't want it to stop.
I've changed dramatically. I went from this deep, dark depression to now having a zest for life. I am not as hyper-vigilant anymore. I don't use the sleeping pills that I used to. I now use meditation. Is everything rosy today? No. I have things that happen to me daily, but it's how I deal with them. And that is the key.
And when you're in that state, guess what happens? You go from selfish, driven by the hormones of stress, to selfless. And all of a sudden, that heart of yours begins to open, and the innate capacity in you to give, to take care of, to nurture, to serve is who we really are. And all of a sudden, you create a community of people that are in love with each other, and they understand the way that we survive is in cooperation, no longer in separation.
Can you turn out the light?